Greetings to all of you. I hope you guys can hear me loud and clear. And I welcome you all into today's session where we will go ahead and talk about cybersecurity and also spend some time in understanding a hacker's mindset. Well, in 2021, cybersecurity cost the world $6 trillion. And by 2025, this cost will increase to $10.5 trillion. Cybercrime is an increasingly serious problem, and to address it, cybersecurity is critical. In order to go ahead and talk more about it, we have with us today Ivan Suarez, who brings with him his 17 years of experience in technical support, including experience from project management, cybersecurity, system integration, network engineering design, and various operating systems. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start today's session. Ivan, the mic is all yours. Let's deep dive into the realm of cybersecurity.
Good morning. Thank you for that. And yes, everybody, welcome to be here today. And we're going to start understanding what cybersecurity is and an attacker's mindset. I'm also going to be doing some small demonstrations to kind of get you understanding why these things are so easy and how attackers use them against us. Okay. So today's is going to talk about top cyber threats like phishing, social engineering, ransomware, password attacks. We're talking about business email compromising, how they're using wire fraud and basically to attack you and to manipulate the systems. We're talking about the top controls and mitigate risk. And then cyber insurance. What do we need to know about that? So a few things before we started. Feel free to submit questions anytime. I'll answer them as we go where appropriate. If I can answer it, I will. I'm watching the question queue, and I'll address them. If I don't address it during the lecture, I will address it at the end. There will be a questions and answers after. You can submit more. I'll have a few minutes for that. So modern cyber attack. What are new and old ways bad guys are getting into our information, into our money? That's the biggest thing. Attackers are getting into our wallet. They're using basic things to manipulate the mindset. You may not think about how easy it is, but it actually is very simplistic. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's an email. Sometimes it can just be an annoying text message. So what do you look for in a bad guy? How do we identify them? We don't. Usually they come with an IP address if they're over the network or within a phone or in a system. All those attackers, it's hard to see them because it's based on intent, not on system. System can't flag, oh, he's malicious. He's not. It only understands that you are here, this is your identity, your IP address, and it allows you to go in. Because it doesn't understand your intent. Once you're in the system, that's when it starts manipulating, and that's when that attacker starts moving forward. It's all based upon reconnaissance. So when we think about what do I mean by reconnaissance, attackers take their time before they are even presenting themselves to you. They know more about the environment, about what's going on, how's it going on, what's being done, how's it being done, and your own process. And to give you a quick, simple example of what I'm talking about, I have a machine here that I have fired up and ready to go. It's a Kali machine, you guys can see. And I'm going to scan a Windows machine. And the Windows machine, if you look at it, has nothing. There's no alert. There's no notification. Nobody knows that anything is going on. But on the backside, on the other end of this whole process, you can see the attacker already finished everything he needs. And he starts running through all this and identifying the machine, everything available to the machine. And to convert this into a more scan. I'll show you the report. I can do this, or any attacker can do this remotely. and they can see exactly what's available on that machine, what's vulnerable. And if you really notice, I did it in seconds, not minutes, seconds. I could tell it's Windows 10. I could tell the version of Windows 10. I could tell how long it's been running. I can tell everything about it, what it supports, what are the different SMB processes that it has, what is the approximate time on it, tells me what kind of hardware they're running, and what programs, what services are running on the machine. So this is a quick example of what they can do and not even be near you. So again, an attacker could be anybody, just someone who has intent. So attacks are done today are very automated. You got programs like Morpheus, Yuki, Wi-Fi, Lazy, the Lazy script, OWASP Net Attacker, Acunetics. You got over hundreds and thousands of different websites you can visit on GitHub or just Googling. And people are making this whole process easier. They're making it so easy that children are actually doing this. It's that simple. Some of the major exploits that we need to look at that have come about in the last year and a half are proxy login, zero login, log4j. I know everybody heard from log4j because it was all over the news. VMware vSphere client. This is a big one, believe it or not. This specific vulnerability hit the enterprise environment, the data centers, the massive companies very hard. And if you're an attacker, you want to hit where the money is at. Why do I want to attack somebody that's at home? Why do I want to attack a company with 3 employees, 10 employees? No, I want to attack the company that has thousands of employees. Numbers means value. Petya Potom, that was another big one that came out. Proxy not for shell. This one is still being dealt with today. There are consistent rollouts of patches, but we're not done with it yet. And this one here, it was from Apple. This is a remote code execution on Apple devices. And I mean devices, phones, tablets, laptops, desktops. Right now, they're rolling out more as we speak. And when you think about the complexity here, we're moving such in a fast method, it's hard to stay abreast of what's going on. Manufacturers, developers are building hardware, building systems, applying software faster than it can be tested and validated. So then this is a attacker's heyday because now they have the fun. They get to find what's broken, exploit it, and of course, reap the benefits, your data. You may not think about it, but your data is very expensive. It's worth a lot of money. The average person produces on a daily basis more than 3 to 4 gigs a day of data. And you're probably thinking, what do you mean by 3 or 4 gigs? Metadata, traffic data, sales data, behavioral data. All that is worth a lot of money to investors, advertisers, and other companies because now they know what you're looking for. Now they know what you need and what you're asking for. So they can market their product, their systems, their services to you based upon your actions. So when you see these vulnerabilities that are coming out, and what CVE stands for is Common Vulnerability and Exploit. And this is a known standard for documenting vulnerabilities. They're seeing this and they're going, well, we'll get it better next time. We'll fix it, but next time we'll do it better. But next time they push the envelope and go faster. And then they realize maybe we should slow down. And they don't do that. So the problem is on both sides. We expect products to move fast. So manufacturers have to move faster, development has to move faster. But development can only move as fast as the product can be built. But again, the consumer market forces them to go faster. Automated. So let's think about this. There's a program called Metasploit. It was built by a company called Rapid. or Rapid7, I'm sorry. And they built this massive platform. It is an incredible platform because what it does is it allows you to automate attacks, Blue Keep, and uh, Eternal Blue, SMB Keep. There's a plethora of attacks that you can do utilizing Metasploit, and it makes it easy. You select the exploit, you put in the person's IP address, you put in the items you have, point it to the machine, and call it a day. If it hits and it sticks, you're in the machine and you manipulate it all day long. You own the machine like if you were the person in front of it. Incredible platform, and there's more of these types of platforms rolling out every day. Now, Rapid7 is also a company that supports and maintains a website called ExploitDB. Now, ExploitDB is not a bad website. And I want you guys to think that it's a nefarious or that we shouldn't be looking at it. No, it's actually a very good website. This website allows us to see what attackers are finding and security researchers are finding. And I'll give you an example here. This is ExploitDB. You have people, real people, submitting problems. That's what you want to support. You want the person that identifies an issue, they're doing the right thing with their ethics. Again, cyber analysts, security analysts, security engineers, they're doing the right thing. They're finding a problem, they're submitting it for fix, and it gets documented that this is a problem. So for example, like Smart RG router, a CVAT, server-side forgery, IO transfer program, MSN switch firmware, WordPress plugins. WordPress has a plethora of vulnerabilities. They're always coming out with vulnerabilities. Arrow CMS, WordPress plugin again. These are all, if you notice, these are all current. These are all very, very current exploits. And you can download them. So let's look at one real quick, just to give you an idea. The WordPress one. It was submitted by somebody, I don't know who the person was. And then there you go. There's the exploit, the title of it. It was Google dorking item. It's part of the WordPress content. It was submitted on this date by the author, vendor's homepage that they were actually able to use it on, the software, and then the version that it affected. And it was tested on Windows 10. So we know that it works on Windows 10. The vulnerable sections right here. And as you go, this is the payload that's being used. They're giving you what they did. So this is, again, a plus for attackers and a plus for defenders, because that's what we are. We may act with attacker's mindset, but to build a defensive mindset. See, a good offense has a good defense has a good offense. That offense has to know how attackers think, operate, and understand what is their next move. You're going to do this, 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 this. That's called tactics, techniques, and procedures in a military mindset. That whole process, you have to understand how they're doing it. Okay? This is a website called Shodan. And if you look closely at Shodan, all we're looking for is remote desktop. And it will give you how many remote desktops are available in the world. This is a search engine, but for information in the Internet of Things. And it's telling us every single system that's available right now. Granted, we may not have the password, but that's one piece of information that moves into the next ones. Okay? We know that's available. We know that we can attack it. Let's do research on the company. Let's try and identify who's the user. Then let's try and figure out the password. Let's try and phish the password. Let's try and spam the password. Attacker's mindset. Email phishing. This is probably one of the most successful methods of any attack. It is a social engineering component. So you have mass scale phishing, which basically means I'm going to blast everybody with phishing emails. Someone's going to fall. Okay. Perfect example of this is called the Nigerian Prince. They were sending out thousands and thousands and thousands of emails stating that they were a Nigerian prince that could not receive their money unless they transferred it to somebody, and they offer to split it in half with you if you allow them to deposit their money in your account. That's it. I guarantee you, people fell for it. And what happened here is it's called the rule of 10. For every 1,000 emails you send, you're about 10 people are gonna go for the issue. So if you think about it, if they're sending thousands and thousands and thousands of issues, that means they're getting tens, 20s, 30s, and 40 and 50 people to give them their account credentials, their accounting information, and they're able to extract whatever they want. It is a very successful attack even today. I heard about this almost 20 years ago, and it's still being done. Spear phishing. If you notice the spear, this is a perfect example of a directed phishing email to a specific victim or a group of victims. Normally, when you see this, they're targeting a specific type of person, a company, some certain employees, a specific vendor. Whaling. Whaling is when they're going after a very large person, a fat cat, a C-level executive, somebody that has a lot of value that they can take. And that if they were able to capture that, it will be a great win. Vision statistics. Verizon DBIR said that between 2021 and 2022, there is an 82% of all the attacks are social attacks or breaches. The most significant ones are all phishing. So if you notice, if 82% of all the attacks are all based upon phishing attacks, then we should be focusing on phishing. Yes, to one extent. There's still 18% out there that they're not using. KnowBe4 is a very famous company owned by Kevin Mitnick. They're saying that 49.6% of all the untrained users fall for phishing tests. Meaning, if I was to do a phishing campaign and send that phishing email to somebody, that they will automatically accept it. They'll click on it. They'll do what they have to do because they don't know any better. They're not trained. They're not educated on the process and how to identify fake or real. There's an increase of 13% of ransomware breaches in the last 5 years. Now, it probably doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you think about it, ransomware is what attackers do after a successful phish. Now, 13% increase from what? That's the question you should realize. A new phishing site launches every 20 seconds. I'm going to show you how to launch 2 in a matter of a few seconds. It's not hard. 74% of all phishing websites use HTTPS because they're using what's called a VPN tunnel. They're trying to send you a link, like a bit.ly, something like that. You'll click on it, or you'll click on the meme or the GIF or the picture or whatever it is, and you'll follow that link straight to the attack. 94% of all malware is delivered via email or mobile content. Now think about that last component, mobile content. I guarantee you, almost everybody in here has their phone somewhere nearby them, or they're using their phone, or they're looking at something, or they're looking up something, or they're trying to find something. Your phone is an extension of you almost at any given point. That is the most weakest link in the entire process, because you use your phone for multi-factor authentication. You're using your phone for additional authority. You're using your phone for daily content. You use your phone for almost everything. So if they can attack your phone, then what's stopping them from attacking you? Take a second and think about that. There's a program called Beef, the Browser Exploitation Framework Project. And what it's used for is attacking browsers. Your phone has a browser. Your mobile device has a browser. When was the last time you closed it? Think about that. If someone executes this type of attack on your system, They're able to gain access to your device via the web browser and microphones, pictures, data, camera, everything. Everything's available. Nothing was without reach. It always comes down to who's susceptible. So phishing, an insider threat. Yes, it is always an insider threat, because what you may not realize is that you may not be the one that's getting attacked, but somebody else is. And because their machine or their system got compromised, the attacker can use their email, their computer, their software, their resources, and pivot into the system and start attacking more people inside the company because it's coming from a trusted source. Would you question an email from your CEO, from your manager, from your director, from your work buddies? No, you probably think it's illegitimate because it looks and feels real. The main goal is to gain money, data, or volume. Okay. Examples of phishing is right here. An important password expires in 1 day. My university. Well, here's the funny thing. This looks real, but it's not. When will a university or anything like this send you that your passwords are going to expire? You'll get it when you log in and you get prompted to reset it. Then I got to tell you this. And as it here, this email is meant to inform you that your My University network password will expire in 24 hours. Please follow the link to update your password. They're not going to give you a link to update a password. I can tell you that right now. That's never going to happen. That's an identifiable fish right there. Here you go. Here's another one. Beth, phishing alert, coronavirus. Tax cut document for Beth. It's a SharePoint link. You have received important documents via SharePoint. Trump's Corona-19 pay cut for your payroll. Kind of weird there. How about this one? IRS, getrefundnow.com. When does the IRS actually have a .com? It's a .gov. It's a government entity. This is fake. It's meant to look real. They'll even get real emails and then copy the content, modify the letters, and put it back out there. These are common tactics that they're using today. And they're getting more and more crafty. For example, you see where it says IRS, they'll make the I into an L or a 1, but they'll make it look like just like an L. They'll change small things that makes it look just enough where you won't figure it out. So social engineering best practices, use your security spidey sense. Now think about that. Does it pass the sniff test? Does it pass the common sense test? Always validate requests if you're not 1,000 or 100,000% sure. Call. Someone sends you an email. Hey, did you guys send me this email? I just got this email right now. Is this from you? Call. Don't freak out. Don't click. Call. Validate. Google it. We live in the world of Google. Check it, make sure it's real. The question I would say here is this who I think it is for sure? Am I 100% sure this is the right person or the right company, the right entity? Did someone mention this to me personally, or was it discussed in a staff meeting? Meaning, who knows about this? Or why would they know about this? Is this the first time I'm hearing about this? Could be suspicious. Ransomware is rising. So major increases in ransomware attacks in 2020 are 18% over the last year. Now you think about that, that's 80% above last year. That really means there were over 118%. Insurance companies are paying out ransomwares because they have no other choice. Most companies don't realize that the biggest defense for ransomware is good backup process. If you're not doing proper backup, successful backups, and checking your backups, You can't recover from ransomware because you need your data. The average ransomware payout is close to $178,000. That's as of second quarter of last year. That's a 60% increase from the year prior. That's the average payout, 178,000. Now think of yourself as an attacker. If you do this 3 or 4 times a year, that's a pretty good salary. Granted, if you get caught, then a different story. But as an attacker, it is very lucrative. And if you're in a country that does not that allows you to do this and does not stop you or extradite you, what's stopping you? Industries that are being attacked are healthcare, government, transport, MSPs, even financial. The big one right now is going to be healthcare because they've realized that the mass majority of your PII, your personal identifiable information, is sitting in healthcare systems. And healthcare, it wasn't until the last 4 or 5 years that started to increase their cyber presence because they realized they're getting targeted. So attackers often get in via what's called RDP or SMB, but RDP mainly. And you stay undetected for almost up to 6 months before launching any crafted attack. So that, think about that. They're sitting there watching, listening, actively being part of the environment so it looks like they belong. The best way to see that if no one sees you or no one flags you, act like you belong. Eventually, you pick up enough data, enough reconnaissance, and you start executing your attacks. They'll never think about it because they thought you were there. You were legitimate. So ransomware rising. If you notice, every quarter, it keeps going up and up and up, exponentially. Ransomware by strain. You got Maze, Ukraine, NetWalker, Zeppelin, Doppelpayer, Banking Trojan, Dharma. Each of these paid out so much money. 420,000 by that malware. Zeppelin, 132,000. 102,000 for Banking Trojan. It's a lot. Now here's about ransomware attacks, and I'm going to pull this one up so you can see it. This website here allows you to see all the ransomwares that were paid per year, the ones that refuse to pay, and the ones we don't know about. But there is knowledge. They don't have it, but it's getting there. The big point is when you start looking at all these attacks, you can see what happened. You can see that Kaseya, Shell, Honda, everyone's a victim at some point. And it's a very common trend that we understand that it's not a question of if you're going to be attacked, it's a question of when will you be attacked. And if you can understand that concept, then you've understood the most important piece here. The need for cyber. Some ransomware trends. The average company size in the ransomware victims is 625. 625 employees is the average company that gets hit with ransomware. Smaller companies still do get hit, but not as often as larger companies. For medium company sizes, usually about 62 employees. All right. The average largest ransomware demand ever made was $18.8 million. That was paid in 2019. The largest ransomware in 2019 was 6.5 million. So they demanded 18.5, but they only got paid 5.6. The average ransomware payment is 302,000 back in 2018. Well, actually, 2019, 2020. 2018, it was $28,000. And this one here at $28,000, anybody here remember WannaCry? That's what we're talking about. WannaCry only made, when the attack actually took place, less than 50,000. So attack vectors, RDP, as you can see, it's a growing piece. Email phishing is exponentially growing, and software vulnerabilities. Software developers are getting better, but there's still vulnerabilities. So big game hunting, the MO of APT groups. So the modus operandi, what that means is basically what is their objective? And their objective is very simple. The bigger the target, the more value to extract. And that's true. If you're able to hit a company like Target, PlayStation, any insurance company, the value of what you can get is incredible. So tactical ransomware statuses. So for a statistic, so 98% is successful pay rate. 16.2 days is the average days of a ransomware incident lasts. Means if you've been hit with ransomware, the average is going to be that 16.2 days. 97% usually recovered, and 3% did not recover the data. 99% of them are all paid with Bitcoin or any a type of cryptocurrency. 1% through other types of coins. This is what's called Attack Myriad for enterprise. And what we're looking here is this is the website that shows you what are those tactics. Remember about that comment earlier? Tactics, techniques, and procedures? Well, it's exactly that. When you look at their website, they're telling you in the reconnaissance, active scanning, gathering victim host information. And you click on one and I tell you exactly what needs to be done. The procedure examples, the mitigations, the detections, and they're giving you all the references you need to review that. So they're giving you the attacker's playbook. But there is also an attacker's defense playbook. Here is a defense playbook from the same company. And they're showing you hardening models, detection models, isolation models, deceiving models, and eviction models. First of all, how to harden an application. Here's application hardening. How does it work? What are the related attack processes? Collection, evasion, the references for different systems. So Windows 10 security technical implementation guides, they're giving you the information right there. How to do it right. You want to look at, for example, process segmentation for execution. How does it work? Software-based implementations, all the considerations, and the related attacks, things that can be used against that specific model, and references. So when you think about this is pretty serious. So ransomware equals data breach, because today's ransomware is typically deployed on the way out by attackers to cover the tracks. When you think about that, they're trying to hide. They don't want you to know what they took. And the longer it takes them to figure it out, the farther away they can get, they can run. Full network compromise. An average of 40 days in a network before a ransomware is executed, meaning that in the last 3 years, attackers have been sitting there in the network 40 days. Even though I said earlier it was 6 months, yes, before they deploy their attack, 6 months. But ransomware can be executed as soon as 40 days. It's super disruptive, meaning when ransomware hits and happens, it is very disruptive because it stops the company's workflow. The company cannot be in production because it's focused on the attack. Ransomware, a ransom is not the main objective. Remember that. It's an afterthought. It's I'm dropping this and running away. Exfiltration of financial data or anything that they can monetize, personal identifiable information, personal health information, anything that they can sell to do identity theft, and so forth. That's what they want. Forensics on ransom networks is spotty at best because not everybody has enough logging and documenting processes in place that they can actually look at the whole process and see what took place. And when we think about that, I relate to a program or a system that I like to use. It's called Zeek. And I'm going to show you an example of a demo of what it does, and you'll see what I mean. This is their website called Zeek. And I'm going to use some just exercise traffic data. Come up in a second, it's processing it. And here we go. It gives us the entire output of what's going on. Well, if I want to look at what happened, let's look at the files that were transferred back and forth. Well, if you go down, we can see plain text, xDOS6. This system right here, this specific program being used is called DNS Cat. It is a DNS exfiltration software. It's used for using tunneling, where I can connect to your computer via DNS. And if you notice that system is on port 53 UDP. It's not secure. It literally is wide open. Your computer uses DNS every day to look up websites, data. Anything you're searching is via DNS. And they're using this specific program right here to take advantage of that process and protocol. If you want to scan it, you can check the hash right there. You can go to something like VirusTotal and see that this is something nefarious. So in a quick scan, I was able to produce and see that this captured data, or traffic anyway, that we can see what's going on at any given time. I can see the connections. Who made that connection? The origin and the response. What protocol, what service? You can see the number of packets. You're able to see DNS queries. Where did they go? Where do they want to go to? You can see network time protocol, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's important to notice because NTP is used and also exploited. Attackers use a time protocol because they know your machine is always going to try to sync time. X509, this is your public key transfer. Attackers also use this for exfiltration. So as you can see, proper forensics and understanding that what's going on, it's a valid key. So ransomware controls, weapons grade data backups. You need strong backups. I'm sorry to say this. If you're not backing up your data, you're not doing it right. You need to religiously patch your systems. I know some of you are probably thinking, well, I don't like patching because it's going to break something. I get it. But patching is the only real guarantee. And I don't mean patching every 6 months. I mean patching often, patching consistently, patching and testing, patching and testing, patching and testing. And the term I mean by testing is if you work in an environment, an enterprise environment, anything with more than 2 or 3 computers, I would set up a lab. Take one of the computers that you have in your environment, set it up as a test unit, give it the update, test everything you need to test on it, the programs, the web browser, everything you guys do on a daily basis. And if you have multiple departments, well, have 2 or 3 computers. Same thing, test them and have those people that use those systems come and test those platforms to see if those updates broke anything. If it didn't, roll the patch. The more patched you are, the better it is for your insurance. And we're getting to the insurance piece. If you have a plan to fail well incident response plan, what that means is if an incident takes place right now, what are you going to do? And it says there, know who to call. That's a big important one. You're going to call the help desk. Well, who are they going to call? They're going to call the CISO? Are they going to call who? What are they going to do? How are they going to respond to this? That's all important. At the end of the day, nobody knows because there's nothing that's being put out there. It's not being made available. It's not publicly or in the company publicly aware. So you need to have a plan. And with any proper incident response plan, you need to take into consideration every possible scenario. Literally, hard drive failure, hard drive theft, laptop failure, laptop theft, backup process failed. What do? You have to go through every single one of those scenarios and try to see, can I make a plan? Can I reduce the risk? Because all this stems into a problem called risk. We consider a problem, we see something, we know something, we identify that this is the problem, but we don't do anything. So then we are accepting that there's a risk. If it breaks, it breaks. We got it. It's okay. We'll recover. But can we do anything to mitigate the risk? Okay, well, backup failed. Okay, let's test the backup. Let's do another backup. Let's what are our options? And then the last one is transfer the risk. If there's a problem, we can't address it. We don't know how to address it. I guarantee you there's a third-party vendor, there's somebody out there, some other company that is willing to take on that responsibility at a cost so that you can have peace of mind. So they'll take on that problem, that risk, and deal with it. Last thing is, one of the other things is going to be train and testing. You need to train your people. You need to train and educate your employees, the companies, what these are, what are the threats, what is the problem, how can we avoid it? And last thing, don't open emails with links and attachments. We've been saying this for years, but it's becoming more and more prevalent. And just so you know, a picture can have a link. A GIF can have a link. A meme can have a link. All those things can have links. So passwords are constantly reused. Some of the worst passwords being used today. I want you to look at some of these. And if you're on your computer, take a look at your keyboard. Does this one remind you of anything? Take a look at your keyboard. Just look at it. What do you see? If you notice they're walking above on the top layer of keys on one side and then on the other side coming to the middle, it's called keyboard walking. Okay? These are passwords that are being used actively. There's people out there that use this, like 1Q, 2W, 3E. Those are common passwords. They still do it. And if you look on websites like Pastebins, you can find some accounts that have been cracked with their emails and passwords. Not as hard as you think it is. People do it to themselves. So modern password rules. Now, I want to get into this whole password issue here because people don't realize how complicated this is, okay? A long password is a good password only because of its length, all right? So 12 characters or 16 characters. Both are good. And if you look at the scale, which we're going to get into in a minute, you're going to see that these passwords have their value. You don't want to reuse passwords. And it's not a good idea. It's a good idea to change them occasionally. Using password managers like LastPass, Dashlane, KeePass, Keeper, OnePass, RoboForm, they're good. They help. But you also need to monitor your accounts and listen to the news. If a company gets compromised, if a company has been leaked data, I believe it was a few years ago that LinkedIn was compromised and their entire password and user database was exposed to the open web and the dark web. That means your password, if you never changed it, was out there. And I guarantee you here, everyone uses the same password for everything or similar passwords. So if they compromise one site, they can get more. And they can identify your email by using simple programs like Sherlock. That's one. Or here, I'll show you Sherlock and Ghunt real quick. Here is Sherlock. And Sherlock's main goal, if you notice what it is, hunt down social media accounts by using them across social networks. Every social network. They put in what is the username, and it will look on every single website and see if you have one. Ghunt. Exactly what it does. It's an offensive tool for Google framework, designed to evolve efficiently, and its current focus is on open source intelligence. It can grab almost anything they want off of there. They can grab your usernames, they can grab your passwords, not really your password, they can grab anything about you in Google. It's not hard, literally not hard. Trying to see if I can sound the list. They usually have a list of the stuff they can do. But your pictures, your YouTube channels, all the information available to you in Google, it's completely available. So let's talk about this password list here. Now, I want you guys to take a second and look at these different columns here, okay? And I want you to look at all these, and I want you to identify where do you fall into this category, which one of these? And then look at the link to your password currently and see where do you fall in terms of this line, okay? Take a second. If your password is in green, you're doing pretty good. If your password is in yellow, we might have to talk. Okay. Now, if you're over 126 years, you're fine. If you're over 12 years, you're fine. If you're over 16 years, you're fine. All these are fine. But these here, we might need to talk, because if you think about it, these passwords are easy to be compromised. Very easy. And you can use programs like Hashcat and so forth to crack these passwords in minutes. Doesn't take very long. So, and the reason why I say that, the further you go through, so if you remember numbers, 0 to 9, that's only 10 characters. Uppers and lowercase, well, 26 characters in the alphabet times 2, that's what? 56, 52. Then upper, lowercase, and mixed letters. Numbers, uppercase, and uppers and lowers and numbers. Then you start talking about 52 plus 10, so that's 62. Then you start adding symbols. There's only 10 symbols that are used today that are allowed. That's 72 possible characters. At 18 to the 72nd power. That's the complexity of 1 quadrillion years. Okay. So password cracking, this is where it gets interesting. For $18, you get 20 hours to use to crack 11 million passwords if you try to. Hacker Noon took 20 hours to do this and literally did it quickly. You can use something called MPK. It's by a company called Coalfire. It costs you about $4 an hour, and you can crack passwords in the cloud. Super easy. And not that expensive. The average password, I mean, we're talking, I would say, even if you have one of these passwords, the attacker is not going to crack your online password. They're going to get your password hash. And then they're going to go offline on one of these sites, crack the password, and let the machine just go. That's what that means. Okay. So in this aspect, they can have your password in days. NIST is an important organization. It's nationally regulated by the government. SP 800-63-3 is the regulation that it falls under. It includes password guidelines. Now, these guidelines telling you what should be expected. Now, this is of the latest update, but there's a new one expected to roll out. A website called I Have Been Pwned, or Have I Been Pwned. This website, I would recommend people use this all the time. I'm gonna say as much. If you put your information on there, you're asking to be pwned. Don't do it, please. Don't go here. People do it all the time. And I kind of tell them that don't do it, but they still do it because they want to know. They want to know their account was compromised. If you want to know if your account was compromised, there's other ways of doing this, not like this. So don't bury your head in the sand. We know there's a crisis. We know there's a problem. But sticking your head in the sand doesn't fix it. So how do we fix this problem? How do we address this? We address it by focusing on exactly what's going on. Fix the problem, people, educate them, train them. But you can't train the ones that you don't know how to train, and you can't train somebody that you're not training yourself. So you almost have to be the trainer. So we have to train you, educate you, and get you ready to be able to do this. So business email compromises. So I was talking about earlier about wire frauds and so forth. BEC is one of the most impactful scams affected today because businesses don't realize what's going on. And here, let me show you this picture so you can see what I'm talking about. Email account gets compromised. Compromised account uses to send payments. Cyber attack receives the money. Basically, they compromise your email. They'll send it to somebody. They'll think it's for real and send you the money. That's it. A simple chain. So business email compromising falls into, we have a big problem, very large problem for customers. The customer email is compromised. How do you know that the customer is not compromised? How do you know that your other vendors are not compromised? Let's talk about that. Target. Back in, I believe it was 2013 or 2014 was when Compromise got attacked. The company that got compromised wasn't Target. It was Fazio HVAC. Fazio HVAC did not do their diligence. And I say this terminology a lot because when it comes to cyber, you have two things you got to deal with: due diligence and willful neglect. They neglected their systems by not using a centralized EDR or antivirus platform that reported when something was wrong. They used free online antivirus, and what caused it? They were getting attacked. No one ever knew. No one checked because the system was just sitting there. But the system was being used to remotely access Target's network. Target also did something wrong here. Target, knowingly that the contract with Fazio was already complete, they still kept the account active. They never shut off the account. And they had a very incredible system for reporting. The system was doing exactly what it was wanting to do. It identified the issue, identified the alert, sent the alert, but the users were forwarding those alerts to an email or an email folder, and they were only looking at them when they had time. So they weren't paying attention to that problem. Oh, it's just the same alert. Nah, let it be. We'll check it later. That led to Target's compromise because they pivoted from Fazio's HVAC system into Target. And once they got into Target, they were able to access the entire platform because they were part of the environment. So they looked at the HVAC and they were able to jump from the network that controls the HVAC into their main network, into their payment processing network. And they dropped malware on all of those registers. At the end of the day, attackers made away with all that financial data and transactions. And Target got hit with a massive lawsuit. And same with Fazio. Okay. So as you can see, it might not be you that's the problem. It may not be your environment that's a problem. It might be the people you work with, meaning external. Another vendor of yours or the customer could be compromised. We just talked about. Almost always, these emails fall into two categories: downloading and spreading additional malware, or you urging the customer to perform a financial transaction, meaning you need to do this now, send this wire now, pay me, or your bills, you're late on your payments. Perfect example of this, there was an email that went out to the financial team for a company that we were helping out with. And the entire financial team had the email they received said, past due invoices. Or I think it was 90-day past due invoices. That means that they haven't paid them in over 90 days. So what did everyone do in that financial team? Oh my God, what happened here? How come we didn't do this? They look at the email and they open the links because they're trying to find out what didn't get done. Bait on a hook. Tips and tricks to share with customers. BCE made up half of the cybercrime losses in 2010, which was $75,000 per scam. That's in 2010. As of 2020, it's actually almost quadrupled. Standard phishing email awareness. Do not click a link or download attachments. Pay attention to the email addresses. Enable MFA for business accounts, meaning you need to use your multi-factor authentication. Those extra layers, apply them. It's going to help you. Individual, step one, let me zoom in. The target, identify target. Who are you going to target? What's the group? Secondly, grooming. Who am I going to write this email to or target in that company? The victim. You're going to exchange information with the victim. Hey, how you doing? Da, da, da. I'm just trying to find out more information and look at how they're writing your stuff. And then all of a sudden send them the attack so they can do the wire transfer. Done. One crime, many names. Business email compromise can go in different names, but be aware. So for example, CEO fraud, CEO impersonation, this is common, very, very common. I got one the other day about CEO impersonation, asking me to buy Apple gift cards for the company party. I knew it wasn't. I knew it was fake automatically. And the other reason why I knew it was fake, that my CEO doesn't like Apple. He's not going to buy Apple gift cards. Another one, employee account compromises. Your account can be compromised. Bogus invoice schemes that you owe money that hasn't been paid. You need to be careful with these different things. Man in the email scam, meaning that someone is attached to the email and they're responding, they're sending back and forth things. Okay. Best practices. Avoid using free web-based emails for business. Use paid services because you're going to get those paid securities for all this stuff. Not only less professional, but easier to hack and typo squat or spoof. Now, typo squat is that you're sitting there waiting for them to make a mistake. There's no corrections. Domain and email addresses are cheap. Yes, they are. Look at Office 365. I think per employee, you can spend as less as $5 a month. Register similar domains to yours to prevent typo squatting, meaning yoursite.com versus yoursite.com. The O and the 1 are changed. You can put an extra character in there. I seen where Google, if you notice, if you misspell Google's name in the web browser, it still takes you to Google because they bought all those sites. They're realizing people were misspelling Google and they automatically had them do this. You put an extra O or one less O, it still takes you there. Be careful about the information you share on your website, like social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, about job duties, about positions, especially about positions with transactional and purchase authority. If you're going to be hiring somebody for financial, don't put any information about what they're going to be doing. Just understand that they're going to be discussed in person or in the job interview. Think throughout the office about email responses. Now, before you send an email, do you proof check it? Do you validate it? Do you review it? Do you check it? Spell check it? Then why wouldn't you look at who are you responding to? Sometimes the person you're sending it to is not the person you should be sending it to, or they're impersonating somebody. So be very careful with that. BCE best practices. Be suspicious of sudden changes in business practices. Communicating via email. We are now going to do X. We are now going to be doing this. This is going to be changing our financial information, changing email addresses, using personal email versus business email. That's a big one. Confirm before taking action. Hey, boss, is this really happening? Check. Confirm before taking the action. Always, always, always. Look into advanced email controls like Office 365 APT subscriptions, advanced persistent protection, advanced persistent threat protection. Use multi-factor authentication. I cannot stress the importance of this. Multi-factor authentication accounts for close to almost, I think it's about 56% of the reduction in attacks. Because they can get your email, they can get your password, but they can't get your phone. Mitigating cyber risks. Now, we've identified risk briefly earlier, but risk comes in 3 factors. All right, so either you accept it, you mitigate it, or you transfer it. The most important powerful thing you can do with reduce a cyber attack, meaning that their ability to attack us. So when it comes to this kind of component, let's talk about low-hanging fruit. So in this aspect, companies should not be easy to attack. And how do we avoid this? How do we do this? Well, we use hardening processes to avoid this. And there's companies or there's an organization called CIS. They're a great organization to use because they are pretty knowledgeable in this process and helping you. It's called the Center for Information Security. And if you notice, they're giving you everything you need to set up correctly. You want to set up Amazon Linux, Amazon Web Services? Okay, we can look at that. And they'll actually tell you exactly how to do it. You want to set up an Apache web server? All right, no problem. Tell you how to do it. You want to see how to set up an Apple iOS? Perfect. Which one? Which version? They're giving you all the tools right there, how to do it right. You want to set up a printer or a network device, a desktop software, a multi-faction printer, right there, which one tells you everything right there. You want to set up server software, like Docker. They're telling you how to do it right there. So they're giving you everything how to do it right. But then there's another side of that coin. I'm giving you all the right way of doing it. To you, you're the cyber defender, you're the analyst, you're the researcher, you're the person that's going to use this for good. You don't think attackers know this? You don't think attackers know that this is what you're going to do? They know this. The trick here is not that they know this. The trick is that this is what we consider minimal standard. If 60% is passing, you don't want to do that. You don't want to just be the lowest guy in the totem pole, that low-hanging fruit. What I mean by that is if you were looking at a fruit tree, you walked up to it, and the fruit's right there for you to reach, easy to grab, it's easy to attack, it's easy to capture. But if the fruit is higher up the tree, we know it's better. It requires us to do a little more work, a little more, it has a higher level of difficulty. Doing these processes, like we're talking over here, enables us to harden and increase the complexity of our defenses. And in this aspect is when attackers have to work. If there's 10 companies and 6 of them are hardened and 4 of them are not, Guess who's getting attacked first? The four that are not. Then they're going to start picking which one is the next less hardened and work their way up the tree until they figure out their target. If you can think in that idealism and that whole process, then you've really addressed the most important concept here. Don't be a victim. Don't allow yourself to be a victim, and don't act in that sense. There's a concept that we use in cyber called defense in depth. And when you look at this defense in depth process, it says right here, you're looking at the mission critical assets, the operations, the policy management, data security, application security, endpoint security, network security, and perimeter security. And if you look, you got honeypots, DLP, enterprise remote access, enterprise wireless security. You've got central content security, host and IPS IDSs. You got all these systems that are in place, like perimeter, VoIP protection, and then you got dynamic app testing, WAF, which is web application firewalls. Then you have further inside PKI, enterprise right management. You've got, again, DLP, which you notice is right here, DLP on the inside and outside, and it's actually at every layer. And the reason we put it at every layer, and I'll explain, is because DLP is data loss prevention. It's used to see if somebody's trying to send something out to the internet that's questionable data, identifiable data, protected data. And then if you look at operations, focused ops, digital forensics, security dashboards, you've got incident response and detection, you've got SOC monitoring, over here you got pen testing, threat modeling. There's so many things here. Like threat intelligence and security policies and compliance. There's a whole plethora of things here we can get into. But this is how cyber and cyber operations is done. You put your asset behind all these things to allow them to have these multiple layers of protection. So if an attacker is trying to get in, he has to break through all these layers to get through here. Funny thing, phishing does that. So when you think about that, phishing is the most successful attack method because it bypasses all of these protections. I can build you a castle. I can build you a moat. I can build you a drawbridge. But if you don't use it properly, what good is it? So the risk here isn't in all these systems, is in using them correctly and training the people to use them correctly. Which is why I came back to the idea of how to harden systems, how to handle the risk behind them. There's always a risk in all these systems, and there's always a risk in all this stuff happening. The question isn't the risk. The question is, how do we address the risk? If we don't know what risk there is, step back, look at it. Sometimes being too close to the problem, you don't see the real picture. And to give you a perfect example of this, has anyone here, I guarantee someone here, people do exercise, yes. But the question I'm gonna have is, anyone here go running? If you do, well, think about this. When you go running, do you think about, what are you wearing? Not just what you're wearing. Are you wearing headphones? Are you wearing colors that are reflective? Are you wearing something that identifies you? Is it so early in the morning that it's still dark? Do you know where you're going? Are you taking protection? Do you have a phone? Can someone get a hold of you? Can you call someone to come get you if something happens? You have to think of all these possibilities that are out there. Oh my God, what can happen? What can happen? What can happen? And try to reduce those possibilities. And then you've done the most important thing. You've addressed the risk. And if you can't address the risk, then you move on to the next component. How can I transfer this risk? What else can I do to give somebody else the risk instead of me? And if I can't do that, you accept it. There's a risk. I'll deal with it when it gets there. Maybe costly, maybe expensive, but it's there. So false sense of security. I want you to look at this picture. The guy's sitting there as a security guard, but he's got a picture of another security guard in front of him. He's sleeping. Do you think this is security? You think about it. Looking like you have strong defenses doesn't mean you're secure. So weapon grades backup. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, why a picture of Han Solo? Carbonite. Carbonite's a really cool program to use. Okay. So backup data protects you from numerous threats. Ransomware is one of the biggest ones. Hackers destroying your computer. Okay, break the computer. I still got my data. Data is the most important component here. Malware corrupts your data and even infects it to the point that's unrecoverable. Fire and other natural disasters. What happens there, Many other threats. There's so many more we can go into. For example, external threats, internal threats, mistakes. People don't realize that internal threat can be something simple as someone deleting a file by accident. It's still a threat. It could be a mistake, but it's still a threat. Include all your critical data and backup often as you can. Doesn't matter. Daily, weekly, live, whatever you want. Often. Store copies off-site. Don't keep all your copies together. We want to talk about that. Make sure it's air-gapped, meaning that it cannot be accessed from somebody else or on other systems. Test your backup process and know that you can restore data. Your backup is only as good as the restoration process. Good job on backing up your system. Can you restore it? No. Then what's it good for? Follow the 3-2-1 rule. 3 copies of your data, 2 different mediums, meaning DVD, CD, external hard drive, USB, and so forth, because there's something called bit rot. Your data can rot on a storage media if it hasn't been used in years, meaning hard drives, USBs. Eventually, your data can get rotted out because it's not being used and it's not being maintained. Hard drives are not forever. Store a copy off-site, at least one site, at least one copy. I rather 2 different sites, but if one's all you got, you use it. Religious patch management. I cannot stress the point of this. Don't just patch it with a plan. We all know that every Tuesday, Microsoft rolls out all their updates. Okay? Well, Tuesday, I'm testing all my updates. Don't talk to me, I'm doing update testing. You tell them, what are we doing? We're testing that it works. It's not breaking everything. Patch management program. You need to have a patch management process and program. You need to know your assets. And what that means is you need to know all of the systems and softwares and inventory of your environment. You need to know what is there. Okay? What I want to translate here is very simple. Earlier, I gave you guys an example about updating, making a test environment. I have set up environments where we have 1 computer for every department. Okay? If there's a laptop in that department, I would have one of those too. If that person uses a 32-bit system or a 64-bit system, we have those too. So if they have both, then you get those as well. We want to duplicate everything that's in our environment in this test platform. Then we apply the patches and let those people come to those systems and test them. They need to sign off and validate it's correct. Now it says identify patches. Well, we don't know every single patch that's coming out. We can join the different organizations and look at the different systems. And sometimes patches roll out. We don't know about them. because there's no notification. So it's on us to sometimes even do this manually. You need to schedule when you're going to roll them out. After testing is complete, roll them out, but on a scheduled and a clarified time frame. Meaning, you don't want to do a patch rollout in the middle of operating. You're conducting business. You don't want to be right then and there submitting all this stuff. You don't want to do that. You want to do it when the time is correct. Lunch breaks, not really. How about after hours? Yes. Again, roll the patch out, and if something happens and it doesn't work out correctly, roll it back. Test it again. Most breaches could have been prevented by proper patch management. Implementation of MFA. Turn on MFA whenever you can. And if you can't turn on MFA, get you a token. YubiKey. There's stuff like YubiKeys that work very, very well. It's one of those tools that you can use to avoid phishing. Right here. It's used for multi-factor authentication. It's one of these little keys right here. And using this, let me see, how about right here? Using one of these keys, you plug it in and it forces you to use that authentication method. Okay. Let's look at the biometric ones. All they are is a key that has a biometric sensor on it, and you can use your thumbprint and so forth, or your fingerprint. These keys are very, very valuable. Granted, you lose one, it's a little more complicated, but you're adding extra layers to that protection method. Let's talk about malware, behavior-based anti-malware. Now, this is critical, okay? Signature-based antiviruses protect against mass majority of the malware out there. And the reason why is because we know what they look like. There's platforms like, I believe it's called the Zoo. And it's a live repository of malware. We can go in here and see all this, what there is in antiviruses. And go right into malware and look at the source code of these malwares. Look at the originals. And you can see all these pieces of malware that they keep to test. WannaCry's in here too, and so is Stuxnet. And you can find all these pieces of malware in here, right? Well, guess what, guys? All this malware can be identified. When you're doing your reports and essays and stuff, and you're submitting it for the university, they have systems that do what's called plagiarism checks. Those plagiarism checks are looking at your documentation and seeing if anything out there on the internet is similar to what you're submitting. So if there's a high level of similarity, then it's plagiarized. Well, antivirus has the same thing. If the code behind that antivirus or that virus is very similar to another one, automatically blocked, right? But attackers use that. It's effective, but not as effective. It requires a more advanced EDR. But signature-based looks at the signature of the file. Behavioral uses the way the virus moves. What files is it touching? Where is it dropping files? Is it creating files? Is it creating folders? Is it doing stuff? Is it making a system call? Is it any network activity? What is it doing? This is called a heuristical behavior analysis. That's what it's doing. That requires an antivirus that has a little bit of AI and a little bit of machine learning to identify the behavior behind a certain action. Well, guess what? There's malware out there now that's called fileless malware. And that fileless malware will live in memory. And it won't do any of those things. It'll execute in memory, but not leave any traces. So behavioral, signature, and no file lists. They're getting more and more and more advanced and complicated. And we haven't even begun to talk about something called polymorphic malware, which means every time the malware executes or does something, it shifts. It changes its code. Or it does something called, there's some that do what's called bit flipping. If its binary was 1001, it'll flip it over and do 01001. So it's completely different binary structure to avoid detection. Plan to fail well. What does that mean? You need to understand cyber attacks. You need to understand how cyber attack works. You need to know what you can do to prevent cyber attacks and how to detect cyber attacks before becoming a major incident. This means that you need to be able to think, understand, and operate as if you were a attacker. Because the best defense is a good offense. Improving the capability to deal with a cyber attack allow you to be more effective as a proper defending person. You test your own systems and do what's called walkthroughs to see if the process works. What are bad guys? Outsiders are 45%. Malicious insiders, think about that. 31% of the people are actually people inside your environment. That's a pretty big number, guys. 31.5% of people that are in your company are possibly the ones that are malicious. That is important. 23.5% are inverted actor, meaning that they were internal and their system got compromised and being used to attack systems. Security awareness training. Employees should read, not just read, understand the policies. Employees should sign the acceptable use agreement. I will not use this for personal use. I will not surf unauthorized websites. I will not, they need to understand that. Employees should receive training on security threats on malware, phishing, social engineering, unauthorized access every year at a bare minimum. We do quarterly because I cannot accept somebody is not trained, aware, and knowledgeable. The more you keep the information current, the more valuable and the more aware the employee is of all these issues. Engage experts resources. You need to realize that you need to build relationships or contracts with IT and incident response experts, people that work in these environments. You need to have good relationship with them because you don't know when you need them, especially if you don't have anybody with inside expertise. Remember that IT is the opposite of IS, okay? IT is information technology and IS is information security. These two teams are different, but they work together. Do you have a relationship with a DFIR firm, meaning a digital forensics and incident response firm, somebody that can handle the incident and somebody that can do the forensics? And the other piece too is you need to have someone that does threat hunting in your environment. And I'll give you the perfect example of threat hunting. The incident responder goes to the situation and identifies what took place. I found this. Their job is to report and capture the moment. That's it. They don't assume, they don't prove or disprove nothing. That is not their job. They can't even assume that it's a person. They need to understand that their job is to capture the evidence. The digital forensics person conducting the forensics can't even do the same. They have to analyze the evidence and report only what they can prove. They cannot assume. They cannot make an assumption or think. No, cannot. If it's white, it's white. If it's this, it's this. If it's this, it's this. That's all it is. That's all they can prove. Because that's what the data is showing them. And if there's lack of data, well, there's a lack of data. Then the incident responder didn't grab everything needed. The forensic investigator needs to only discuss and provide only what that can be proven through the evidence. Threat hunter takes what the incident responder found, the forensic person identified, and uses that data to look through the entire environment if there's any other machines that are compromised in similar fashion. So for example, let's talk about the scenario with phishing email. Somebody received a phishing email. Perfect. We look at the subject, we look at the sender. We go to the email exchange server. We look at everybody else that received from that email, from that either that sender or that subject. And if anything matches, flag all those machines for the incident responder. That instant responder has to identify all the machines. Did they read it? Did they open it? Do they still have it? If they didn't, if they answered no to all those, purge it. Get it out of the exchange server, get it out of the system so they can't see it. They can't infect themselves by accident. Okay? That is the value of a good DFIR team and an information security team. You need to purchase cyber insurance, but you need to know what you're being covered for. What are your coverages? How much do you have? How much value do you have? How valuable is your data? And then understand that cyber insurance, they're going to charge you, but they're going to want you to do certain things to ensure that you are maintaining the environment at a high level of security. Use your expert resources and walk through and test ransomware scenarios, meaning you have people with expertise and knowledge in your own environment. Leverage them. Let's walk through the process and see what should we do here. Tabletop exercises. That's important. You need to communicate internally and externally. Do you have a PR, meaning a press release? Do you have an HR resource? When these situations happen, the public relations team needs to submit something to the public, letting them know, hey, this took place. This happened. How do we address this? How do we swing it? How do we say it in a way that it benefits us or that doesn't hurt us? But here's the thing. A lot of companies are publicly traded. If they disclose something negative, it can greatly affect the company's value and the well-being of the employees. So you can see the importance of doing all this cybersecurity, doing all this protective and defensive process, because you're not only affecting the company operations, you're affecting the company assets, the value, the way people see the company, and the way the company responds. This is a major piece that people tend to not realize how important it is. So lawyer up. I know it's funny to say it that way, but yeah, get a lawyer. Engage your legal team to help protect your organization, especially if an investigation is needed. 99.9% of the time, you're going to need a lawyer regardless. Run the communication to the legal team. Anything you disclose, go through the legal team. Maybe you're saying something you shouldn't be saying. Maybe you're not saying enough. Engage with law enforcement. You need to have a strong and a mutual relationship with law enforcement in your organization because they're going to be the external hand that can help you. Negotiate ransomware. That's always the question that everybody always asks. Should we negotiate ransomware? Well, it depends. Did your backups work? Did your systems work? Do your processes work? That's the point we need to realize. If all that failed, then you might need to start negotiating. If it didn't fail, why are we talking? Just restore your system. So how do we protect information? People. First topic is people. Training, education, awareness, repetition, consistently advising them, training them, reminding them, hey, don't forget, don't forget. It keeps it current, keeps it fresh. Through process. Governance, compliance, and risk are the most important pieces here because governance builds what needs to be done. Process is how you're going to do it. And then, of course, the risk. This is the risk if we don't do this. Oversight, and then, of course, policies. Policies that you need to maintain and ensure that these companies and these employees and these organizations are following what the governance is telling us and following up with reporting, accurate reporting, and at the same time, accountable reporting using the proper technologies like firewalls, IDS, IPSs, a SIEM. For those of you who don't know, SIEM is an security information event management. It takes all the log information from all these systems and it puts it through a platform and allows you to see all that correlation, that what's happening. Anti-malware, malware by its an EDR, essentially. Strong passwords are great, but MFA is better. Logging and monitoring. I cannot tell you the most important value here, and I'll show you what I mean by this. OWASP Top 10 tells us that this is one of the top 10 things wrong right now with any organization. And let me see if I can share this. Here you go. Broken access control means that their systems are allowing people to bypass access. Cryptographic failures. Encryption is not working. Injection, basically SQL injecting to websites and pulling data from the same systems that are meant to store it. Insecure design. Somebody or some platform or some person did not know how to properly set it up or deploy the platform, and they built an environment that is not secure because of inherent weaknesses. A security misconfiguration. That basically means I didn't understand how to do it. I didn't do my diligence. I didn't do my homework. I didn't get trained, and I set it up what I thought was best, and I didn't check. Vulnerable and outdated equipment. That is a big one, but there's ways around that if you know how to address that problem. Segregate it, block it from the internet, keep those systems secure or air gapped. Maybe the company can't afford to do that right now. And I'll give you a perfect example. When I worked in healthcare, there was a platform that has been used since Windows 2000, and we're talking probably 18 plus years. That system, that platform, cannot be afforded to turn off. They cannot afford to not use it. It is a very vital piece of equipment in a healthcare environment. But they were in the process of upgrading it, which meant they needed to bring it down for 4 days. 4 days of not having that system was critical. And I'll explain to you how critical. They were losing close to about $130,000 a day in profits. For a hospital, that can mean the salaries of 5 or 6 employees or 10 employees. That's huge. Then identification and authentication failures. Username and password, it failed, not using MFA. Software and data integrity failures. Their data is getting compromised because there's not enough systems behind it to protect it. Security and logging information failures, not logging enough, insufficient logging, and being able to monitor and alert there is a problem. Server-side forgery requests. These are very common requests. This is when people send information to a web server and it causes the system to give you data and it's supposed to. These are all common things. And if you guys want to learn more about it, it's on OWASP Top 10's website, on the OWASP website on Top 10, and you can read more about them. So at the end of the day, out of people, process, and technology, where is the weakest link? It's always going to be the people. Testing yourself, do a risk assessment, making decisions, people, process, and technology. Information security programs, documenting decision. Again, people, process, technology. Audit, test decisions. Audit the people, audit the process, and audit technology. These are the 3 main parts that you need to follow with risk, security programs, and auditing. You want to look at those 3 areas in each one of those and see where each apply. Cyber insurance. What you need to know and what's the questions you should ask. So in cyber insurance in the Wild West, cyber insurance is related to new coverage. Basically, this has not been done for many years. Everyone does it differently because no one really understands what we're trying to do. Lots of options, small and big, and cost is incredible. For different types of coverages, theft, fraud, business interruption, which means if something happens to the business and it cannot conduct business, the insurance will pay out those profit losses, pay out those gains. Data breach and compromise. That's big. That means the insurance is going to take and be responsible for whatever breaches and compromise take place. Data loss and restoration. If you lost data and restoring it, they're gonna pay for it. Extortion, like ransomware. They're gonna cover you for ransomware. They're gonna pay the ransomware. Reputation coverage. If your reputation gets tarnished, or you lose value in your asset, the insurance will cover it. All that costs money. I guarantee you it costs a lot more than you think. So cyber insurance questions. Do you know your options? Do you know what really is covered? You need to understand your coverages. Does the company have a history for paying cyber insurance claims? That's a big one. Because if you get their insurance and then when it comes time to need them, will they actually do it? Will the policy cover your expenses and actual loss? Did you get enough coverage? Are customers or customer-related losses covered? That's a big one for people. Some cyber insurance companies are required to even verify certain controls in place for paying claims. Did you do your diligence? Have you been doing the proper things in place to make sure that you're secure and you're up to date? What specific incidents are covered? Are they going to cover all of them? Are they going to cover only a few? Which ones? And then where there's gaps, you need to figure that one out. Some cyber insurance companies are offering additional services such as digital forensics, incident response, all these kind of liability coverages, but they may restrict who can use it in the event. It depends on which events. They won't cover every event. You need to understand your options. So end user security training. The first line of defense from cyber threats is the employee. Your employee, the people working to the left and right with you, are going to be the biggest line of defense. So before we do questions, I want to give you a quick demonstration, okay? And granted, if you have questions, please put them in the questionnaire. That way I can go ahead and start looking at them, okay? All right. So I'm gonna use a program called BetterCap, okay? And BetterCap, what's gonna do for me is it's gonna allow me to attack the system, okay? I'm gonna set an ARP spoof. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what is ARP spoof? ARP spoof on a Windows machine is the system's ability to see and report. So ARP-A, all the computers and their MAC addresses, all the IPs and MAC address associations. So this IP associated with that one. So 178 is my Windows machine and 106 is my Kali machine. And if you notice, this is the MAC address. 254, that is the gateway. That is the way out to the internet. ARP sends a query every minute. So the gateway, the router that sends the information off the internet, sends a query to all the machines in the environment, says, hey, send me your data. I am your gateway. We are going to take advantage of that and infect it. Okay, so let's do that. And turn it on. Now we turn that on, and we're going to go ahead and go back to the Windows machine, and we're going to see. And if you notice correctly, here's my Kali machine, and here is my gateway. The MAC address changed, and to prove it, look what happened earlier. There it is again. I'm going to show you what happened before. Before we did it, before we did it and after. So as you can see, my attack is working. No alert, nothing came on the Windows machine and said, hey, we have a problem. Nothing happened. So then on the Kali machine, now we'll do what's called a DNS spoof. Before we can do this, I actually have to start a program called Apache, because I want to host a website. So Firefox local host. I'm going to host this fake website. Okay. Remember, it's hosting on my local machine. Okay. I started the process already. I'm already hosting it. I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to use DNS spoof. I'm going to DNS spoof yahoo.com. Then I'm going to set the IP, my target. And then I'm going to turn on the actual, where is it? Now, it's working. It's already attacking. It's already doing its thing. So let's have some fun. And if you notice, when I go to yahoo.com on the Windows machine, I am getting that malicious website that I'm hosting. Nothing came back on the machine saying, you have a problem. You have an alert. Something is wrong. Nothing. Defenders turned on. There's antivirus. There's everything here. There's firewalls. Nothing came back. That is how simple an attacker can show you a malicious website by going to a real one. Let's go back to Kali. I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm actually going to stop this. It stopped. Let's go ahead and get out. Let's use ngrok. Now, ngrok is a tunneling software. You're probably thinking, okay, well, it's not a secure website. Yes, it was a secure website. I can use ngrok and I can host that same website. And guess what? You see here. There it is, and it's secure. Fully secured. Granted, I would take this web link right here and I would use something like bit.ly. And I would shorten that URL to make it more prevalent. As you can see, it's very simple. Now, let's take it on a whole other area. Right here. This is called the Social Engineering Toolkit. And if you notice, I can do social engineering attacks, pen test training, modules, updating, and so forth. Well, let's do social engineering attacks. We can do spear phishing, website attacks, infectious media generator, which basically means I can take a picture, a video, a meme, GIF, a message, anything, and inject a payload right into it and send it to somebody. I can create a payload listener. I could do a mass mailer attack. You know, I said earlier about the Nigerian prince. You can use this to mass email people, but here's where the fun part comes in. You're emailing them as if you were somebody else. In other words, it's a fake mailer. Adrenal-based attack vectors, meaning you can use IoT on this. Wireless access point attack vectors. There's a lot of things you can do. QR code generators. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, yeah, well, QR code, I can see how that's a big one. Yeah, it is. QR code. And if you notice, Here's a good example of a website. Right here. And remember that link I gave you, showed you guys, talked to you guys earlier about ngrok? Well, I can put that link right in here, and I can /bin /dash nc -lvnp, and let's do 192.168.1.106.5555 for the port number. And guess what? I can print that QR code. Now, I want to show you something funny. This link could be a fake website I'm hosting, right? Restaurants are using QR codes now for their menus. Well, what's stopping me from looking at their website, copying their website with a program like httrack, and cloning the entire website, hosting it on my machine, which I'm hosting a fake website, and then putting it into this QR code with my attack, slapping that sticker over their sticker, and then whenever you go to that restaurant, you scan it, I'm automatically infecting your machine. What's stopping it? I'm hosting the same menu. I'm showing you the same thing that the restaurant is showing you. How do you know it's different? All you care about is the menu. So you're going to scan it with your phone, look at the menu. Oh, I want to order X, Y, and Z. How do you know it's the right website? You don't. So that's the complication there. So back to over here, in this whole piece, I'm going to actually demonstrate something for you guys. I need to stop Apache though. Okay. Let's do website attack vector. Let's do a credential harvesting method. I want to capture someone's credentials. And I'm going to use a site, a template, because to be honest with you, I don't have time to clone a website and give you an estimate of time to ask questions. So let's do a template. And yeah, let's do that. And let's pick Twitter. All right, let's go to the web browser. Let me clear the cache. That way it's not all there. Wait, that's Twitter, right? Okay. All right, so that didn't work. Now I'm on Twitter's website, but I put in my credentials. Hold on. Let's take a look at this. I captured the email and I captured the password by simply using that credential harvester. And if you notice, right after I did that, it took me to the real website, asking me, here's out, to log in again. Now think of the attack vector here. If I did this, and you went to that website, you went to the link, you logged in, oh, and then you try again, I guess I put my password in wrong. Let me log in again. You would never think that something was wrong. You would automatically assume logically, and because psychologically, maybe I did something wrong. Let me try again. And someone like me could actually just capture that password and that username on the fly. Just that easy. Okay. And if you want to add that other layer of security, not a problem. We can do the exact same attack with a secure link. Use this one here better. Let's see, ngrok piece. Supposed to come up. Give it a second. And then you will see, again, the Twitter login page. Okay. So what questions do we have? Or does anybody have any questions? I see one here. I see two questions. Hold on, let me answer these. It says, how much critical the IoT devices on cyber attacks? Huge, huge. And I'll give you a perfect example for that. Showdown. Okay, so here we go. Here's Showdown. And if you notice on Showdown, we can actually search, explore, and we can look at different devices. Let's look for IoT. Let's look for printers. Let me log in. Hold on. Let's look for Chromecast. Give me 1 second. It's asking to log in. I forgot about that. Let's look at printers. Well, there they are. Here are all the IoT printers out there right now on the internet. And you can see how many there are throughout the entire world. Want to look at other ones? Let's look. Let's look at webcams. Webcams, no password. There you go. Webcams with no passwords. Since you asked about IoT, how about actually default? That's a pretty good one. Default username and passwords. Systems that have not been configured with the proper one. Let's look at this one here. Bad query. Okay. Let's pick a different one. How about password? How about password 1234? And there you go. 2,381 devices with a password as 1234 right there. These are all the things there and where they are in the world. It's amazing how easy it is, right? So yeah, IoT, huge, huge component. And I would highly recommend that if you are going to be using IoT, have a proper process in place. Okay, next question says, I am completely new to cyber and I would like to know where to start and if you have any recommendations of what courses can get me to get started. Well, Eric, you're actually at the right place. You're here right now listening to me speak, and I'm one of the instructors in the program. I've been working in the cybersecurity world since the mid 90s in these offensive and defensive spaces for many years. Even in the combat zone, I was in the service. And I've been training and teaching people how to do cyber from other industries. I've taken people from healthcare, people in sales, I had students that have been working in military affairs. I've done people working on oil rigs, people that have worked in anything else other than cyber. And I've trained them in how to be successful cyber analysts and cyber agents. So where to get started? You're at the right place. You're here. And being able to move forward, if you choose to go with this program and move and learn more, I think this is a great opportunity for you here. So, anonymous attendee asked, if an attacker can capture the username and passwords so easily, as then why do we advise users to use strong passwords? Just curious. That's a great question. Because strong username and passwords, not every attacker has access and control to your network. It's only when they can get into your network that they can do these kind of tactics. Prior to that, your password is still valid. But remember what I kept saying in the whole class, the whole session. Password is one factor. Multi-factor authentication is where you need to be. Okay. How law enforcement can be helpful to organizations and how they respond to us, which mention which method is best for them to help us or nothing help us. Okay, law enforcement helps because let's say you identified an attacker. What are you going to do? You can't go after them. You can't arrest them. You can't pressure them. You have to communicate with those agencies, FBI, CIA, a local law enforcement, and so forth, because they're the ones who are going to help you to address those concerns. They can take it to the next level. You stop because you've reached your limit. They have the extradition, they have the ability and the authorization, meaning permission, to go forward. And then how can they respond to us? Well, they respond to us by helping us improve our security posture. They're the ones who are going to give you that inside information, trends. This is what we're noticing in the environment. I'm really sorry, but I have to go. Where exactly would I go to get the training you're offering, please? Nuno, I believe the program can reach out to you. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question. I'll let the team answer that one for you guys. But
yes, Ivan, we will take care of the Nuno. You will be getting a call from us, and we will go ahead and update you on the same.
Iman, they'll answer that question for you. And then the law enforcement piece. I'm so sorry. Yes, they're going to give you trends, information on the insider threats, things that are happening in the industry that only they can see that we don't. They're going to share that information with you because guess what? It's open threat exchange. They're going to share that exchange and that information of attackers, known tactics, known process. This is what we're seeing. And another good website to look at if you want to learn more about forensics investigations, DFIR report. It's a great website to look at because you'll be able to read about these attack trends, these attack methods, and the way they did it. You can see, for example, this one right here about the MO test, the case summary, the services, the timeline that took place. These are all like for like basic attacks. What took place? Tell me about it. Tell me the story. And usually that's why I tell people when I talk about forensics is that forensics is a storyteller. They're going to look at what happened and they're going to tell you the story. They're going to give you the story. This is what happened day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and so forth, and how the attacker moved through. So that's what law enforcement gives you. Okay. Will we have a certificate attending the session? The program, they can answer that question. Answer. Many thanks. You're welcome. How can I know maybe my cyber has been hacked or attacked? Okay, for that, I'm going to show you this website here. live.sysinternals.com. You can go to this website here and you look at something called auto runs. Okay. And I'm going to download it so you can see it. And I'm going to open it up. And auto runs, what it's going to do is it's going to run everything on the system, right? And if you notice, let me make it small so you guys can see it better. If you notice everything here running, right? But what you don't notice is right here, this column on the right. It says virus total. Virus total says that some of these items have no threat and 2 threats. 2 out of 75, that's not that bad. I know this is, it's Slack. It's not a bad service. But to do that, you're going to go into entry. It's under options, scan options, and you're going to check virus total and submit unknown hashes. Doing that will allow you to see all these possible threats. That's a quick way of finding out if something is running on your computer that's questionable. Okay. Answered live. Crazy times ahead. Amazing information. Thank you, Evan. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Please also send the link on how I can start the course. Yep, they'll be sending that to you. Will we have certificate? I don't know. We need resources to learn more about. Could you share good ones? Well, yes. The Hacker News is a good website to start looking at things that are going on and reading about attacks. They do a pretty good documented write-up. The DFIR reports, like I showed you earlier, another good website to look at. And listening to the news. I mean, granted, the news is not going to tell you about cyber, but they're going to tell you about things that are happening. I didn't thanks a lot about law enforcement. You're welcome. So, any other questions that I can answer while we're still here? Okay, perfect. I appreciate everyone's time and thank you for having me today. Thank you, Iman.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for your time. And on that note, we are going to go ahead and call it today. It was really nice connecting with all of you guys, and I'm pretty sure you learned something new. So on that, let's go ahead and take a leave. You guys have a wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.